The Silent Earthquake, Barnes versus FELIX, and the new shield for gun owners.
While headlines chase political chaos and courtroom spectacle, a quiet tremor just shook the foundation of American law. Inside the marble halls of the Supreme Court, in a rare moment of total unity, 9 justices stood together. Not over a technical loophole, but over a constitutional principle that reaches into every home, every traffic stop, and every holster in this nation. The case was Barnes versus FELIX, and though it began with tragedy, its ripple touches every American who values freedom, accountability, and the right to defend themselves. This wasn't a whisper about the Second Amendment, but its echo will redefine how the Fourth Amendment protects every armed citizen. In this episode of Firearms Rights Advisor, we're cutting through the fog to explain what the court decided, why it matters for every lawful gun owner, and how one unanimous ruling just rewrote the rules of engagement between citizens and the state.
Chapter 1. The story behind Barnes versus FELIX. At the center is a split-second encounter that ended a life and began a constitutional shift. Officer Robert FELIX Jr. conducted what should have been a routine traffic stop on Ashton Barnes, suspected of minor violations. When asked to exit the vehicle, Barnes hesitated, then tried to drive off. The officer leapt onto the door ledge. 2 seconds later, 2 shots. A life ended in roughly 5. Barnes's mother filed suit, claiming her son's Fourth Amendment protection against excessive force had been violated. Lower courts dismissed her claim. They said, the moment the officer felt threatened, the shooting was justified. But the Supreme Court saw something deeper, a flaw not in one man's reflexes, but in the legal lens through which force is judged. Chapter 2. The Moment of Threat Rule. For decades, several federal circuits clung to a narrow idea, the moment of threat standard. Under it, judges examined only the exact second when force was used. Context didn't matter. Everything before or after, ignored. If an officer felt danger at that frozen instant, the shooting was deemed reasonable. That doctrine became a shield, not just for good faith mistakes, but sometimes for preventable tragedies. It trained courts to look away from escalation, misjudgment, or poor tactics that created danger in the first place. That's what happened in Barnes versus FELIX. 2 seconds of chaos eclipsed the full story. And the Supreme Court decided that was not justice, that was tunnel vision. Chapter 3. The Supreme Court speaks with one voice. 9 justices, 1 opinion. Written by Justice Elena Kagan, joined by the entire court. They didn't just tweak a doctrine, they erased it. The court ruled that excessive force claims must be judged under the totality of circumstances. Every fact, before, during, and after the moment of force, now matters. No more legal time freeze. No more ignoring the lead-up. Judges must ask, would a reasonable officer, seeing what happened across the whole encounter, consider that level of force necessary? The opinion made it plain. The totality of circumstances inquiry has no clock. It reaches backward, forward, through every decision, every word, every choice that shaped the danger. In one stroke, the court realigned the Fourth Amendment with common sense and constitutional conscience. Chapter 4. Why gun owners should care. You might ask, what does a police force case have to do with me, the lawful carrier? Everything. If you own, carry, or merely support the right to bear arms, you already live inside the intersection of the Second and Fourth Amendments. A traffic stop, a mistaken red flag visit, a 911 call gone sideways. Until now, courts often focused only on the flashpoint, the officer's instant of fear. Now they must weigh the whole encounter, including whether the officer misread lawful gun ownership as a threat. This new precedent means your lawful carry cannot automatically be framed as aggression. It allows courts to see when compliance, communication, or misinterpretation led to unnecessary escalation. For responsible gun owners, that's not a loophole, that's long overdue balance.
Chapter 5. The New Legal Framework. The totality standard is more than a legal phrase. It's a framework built on fairness. Under it, courts must examine the entire timeline, from first contact to final outcome. Assess both behaviors, citizen and officer alike. Determine reasonableness from the perspective of a trained officer, not hindsight, but not blindness either. De-escalation efforts, verbal cues, tactical choices, all now count. For gun owners, that means when misunderstandings happen, the law finally allows context. Was your draw defensive? Did you comply before force was used? Did the officer's approach create confusion? The court has mandated that truth must be told in full, not in fragments.
Chapter 6. Ripple effects across the courts. This wasn't a quiet correction. It was a constitutional reset. Circuits that built decades of precedent on the moment of threat model now face overhaul. Pending cases will be reevaluated. Old rulings may be reopened. New lawsuits will invoke Barnes versus FELIX as fresh precedent. Every federal judge, every police department legal advisor now has one instruction. Context is constitutionally required. Victims of excessive force have a revived path. Officers have clearer guidance, and the justice system regains something it has lacked: consistency. This is the Supreme Court reminding every lower bench: the Constitution is not a stopwatch. It's a storybook, and every page matters.
Chapter 7. The Gun Owner's Reality Check. If you carry, this chapter is about you. You are statistically more likely to encounter law enforcement than most citizens. Traffic stops, range inspections, hunting checks, calls from misinformed neighbors. In those tense moments, clarity saves lives. Now, if things go wrong, this ruling gives you and your attorney a broader canvas. It lets the facts speak in sequence, not in fragments. It doesn't make all use of force illegal. It simply demands that when deadly force is justified, it be justified by truth, not by habit. This decision holds everyone, officers and citizens, to the same constitutional mirror. Rights and responsibility balanced again. Chapter 8. The Second and Fourth Amendments together. For years, these two amendments lived in separate rooms. The second about arms, the fourth about restraint. Now they meet. The Second Amendment protects your right to carry. The fourth protects your right not to be punished for carrying lawfully. One without the other is hollow. Together, they form the modern citizen's shield. The court's message is unmistakable. Lawful possession cannot, by itself, justify deadly force. That statement binds the two amendments like never before. A new constitutional partnership forged in unanimous ink. Chapter 9. What happens next? Legal scholars are calling Barnes versus FELIX the Miranda moment for use of force law, a precedent that will echo through police training, prosecution strategy, and civil rights litigation. Departments will rewrite their manuals. Officers will be trained to consider the chain of decisions, not just the flash. Defense attorneys will cite this ruling in every excessive force claim. States will adjust policy to avoid lawsuits built on the new standard. And because the ruling was 9-0, it carries moral weight beyond politics.
This isn't ideology, it's accountability written in marble.
Chapter 10: Why It Matters for All Americans. You may never draw a gun. You may never face a flashing light in your mirror. But you will always live under the Constitution. And how it's interpreted decides how free you truly are. Barnes versus FELIX tells us something essential. Your rights don't vanish in moments of fear. They endure through them. If you've ever wondered whether courts would truly examine all the facts, now there's proof they must. If you've feared that lawful carry could be misread as threat, now there's precedent to protect you. So share this ruling. Talk about it. Because freedom only survives when knowledge does.
This was Firearms Rights Advisor, where we separate noise from law and restore clarity to your constitutional rights. If this breakdown helped you understand what just changed in America's legal landscape, subscribe now, share it with your community, and remember, rights aren't granted by headlines, they're guarded by awareness. Stay informed, stay lawful, and above all, stay free.